Hey everyone, my name is Casey. This time on Patina Pit Stop, I'm going to tell you a little story all about how I took that 64 Chevelle station wagon and won that check up there. First time I won a bracket race in about 26 years, and I was so excited, but I did not record any of it. Of course, and that's the time I win. I'm going to show you what I did to the car to make it more consistent and a little bit about the story, and then we're going to go racing again and see if I can go undefeated in 2023. Try to give you this drag racing story in the short version.
Okay, here we go. The short version.
And what I did different at this bracket race. Well, obviously one thing I did is I didn't record. I don't know if that had a whole lot to do with it. I don't find the videoing to be very distracting to me. I try not to let it be a main part. Usually I just hit record before I start the run. It doesn't take that much focus away from me. It might be a little bit, but I don't know. I don't think that was the main factor. The story is, my brother, he bought a 74 Plymouth Duster. It's a drag car, runs low 11s in the quarter mile, runs low 7s in the 8th mile. He bought it, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, but he hasn't really raced it that much. And he wanted to race and I wanted to race, so we made up a plan to go down to, well, I went down to Ringgold, Georgia, which is basically Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's like one exit into Georgia from the Tennessee-Georgia state line, not the Florida-Georgia state line. That's a totally different thing. This is the Georgia-Tennessee, Florida-Georgia. This is the Tennessee-Georgia state line, not the Florida-Georgia. Anyway, it's one exit in. This is the state line, and this is Tennessee, and then this is Georgia, and you go, it's right here. My dad and brother live just outside of Atlanta. So for them, it's about a 2-hour drive to Brainerd Motorsports Park. Neither one of us had ever been there. And 8th mile track, it was kind of a cool track. It's like 2 hours for them, 2 hours for me. He's got a truck, enclosed trailer, all that good stuff. Obviously, I drove my car down on street tires. I went down basically just to have fun. I really didn't think I was going to do good. I hadn't raced since last November. This was back in May. So it's been 6 months since I even been on the track. I wasn't worried about doing good. I was just going down there to see my brother, see his car run. We were both going to have some fun, hang out with my dad. You know, it was going to be, you know, a guy's weekend, you know, dad and the sons, you know, racing and having a good time. So one of the things that my dad and I talked about that I wanted to do different with the wagon is, if you've noticed in my previous videos, when you get to the end of the 8th mile, that's right when I'm shifting from 2nd to 3rd. It's just the way the car's geared, the horsepower, it's right at the shift point. I've tried to shift earlier to give myself more time, because when you're bracket racing, you're trying to find your opponent and you're trying to look for them. And I'm the slow car a lot of times, so I'm looking back over my shoulder and trying to find the other driver. Well, it's hard to shift and find the other driver at the same time. So I wanted to shift differently or not shift at all. I've even had a video where I tried to run all the way through the 8th mile in 2nd gear. I hit my rev limiter at 6,500, which is probably about as far as I want to push this engine. It makes power, but the bottom end is basically stock, and I don't want to risk blowing the engine up just to do a bracket race. So I was talking to my dad when we were on Southeast Street Meet last November, and I was telling him my dilemma about shifting into 3rd right before the 8th mile and how it affects my bracket racing. And my dad said, well, why don't you just get to like 6,000 RPM and then let off and hold and hold it right there. His idea wouldn't work because you're bracket racing and trying to be consistent, but that thought put it in my head, how can I limit the car to only be turning like 6,000 RPM without hitting a rev limiter? I can set my rev limiter lower, but I don't want it banging off the limiter going through the traps. How can I do that? And my idea was a throttle stop. So the first one, I've made a couple versions. The first one, I basically just took a hose clamp and put a screwdriver on the throttle bracket. Obviously that looked really bad. So then I decided to make one out of a piece of wood, and I zip tied that to the throttle bracket. It actually worked. That's what I used that weekend when I went down to the track. So what I did was I left at a lower RPM. I shifted from first to second even earlier, like around 5,000 RPM. Then with the throttle limited to like 3/4 of a throttle, I held second gear all the way through the traps, and the car ran right through the traps at like 6,000 RPM, which is exactly where I wanted it to be, like right at that 6,000 RPM. So as high as I really wanted to rev it. So the throttle stop worked. The lower launch RPM, my 60 foot really wasn't hurt that bad. I think because this thing has such a big cam, not enough stall, it's loading the engine too much. It needs more converter. I can't stall it up enough with the 2500 that's in it right now. So it lugs out of the hole. Well, not having full 4-barrel actually made it a little better. This is not a short story. Let's speed it up, Casey. Left at 1500, shifted at 5, went through the traps at 6 in second gear, never had to shift into third. I lost about 2 miles an hour. I was doing like 77, 78 in the 8th, and instead of running 860s, 870s, I was running like a 910, I think, somewhere in there. About a half a second slower, 4 to 5/10 slower, and seat of your pants, you can't tell that when you're racing, and it doesn't really matter when you're bracket racing. It doesn't matter how fast you go. It doesn't matter how fast you go. It matters if you're consistent. And only running in second gear made the car more consistent, and ended up winning the race that night. So bring me back to where we are now. So then the next thing I did was I stuck that giant bolt in the firewall. I don't like it because I drilled this giant hole. I didn't like the way that looked, and I couldn't switch between full throttle and part throttle. I drive this car on the street. I want to be able to play. I want to be able to have fun with it, and not having full throttle, even though seat of your pants, you can't really tell the difference. It just, I don't know, it's not cool. So I wanted to be able to go full throttle easily. Well, that bolt in the firewall was headed out on the backside. There's no way to do that simple and easy. That's what brought me to the version that we are going to do today. And so this is going to be version 4.0, and let me show you my idea and how this is going to work, and hopefully it'll be easier to switch it from street mode to bracket mode in the future. That was not a short story. I mean, I'm bored and I was telling the story. All right, so the firewall's cleaned up now. That's where my temperature sending unit came through, because I had to drill that big of a hole to make it come through there. That's where I had that big bolt, which looked like Fido's butt. And I also had the oil pressure sending unit thing come through there, and then the tack and distributor wires going right there. They are right there. They were coming in here. This looks much better now. I think what I'm going to do maybe this winter is try to make something to cover that whole back firewall area. I just think it would look nice and neat. You know, take out these bolts that are in there and just, whoop, that's loose. Just clean all that up a little bit. I think that would look a lot better. Kind of want to do some of that detail stuff. But I'll show you what I have for my new plan for my throttle stop. There's the two big old holes I'm going to try to get rid of. There's another little one. So I used my old stop sign, cut it out, And this is the piece I have. But I want to, before I paint, I need to sand it. And I bought this cheap sander off of Amazon. I got some 80 grit. I did 120, but that didn't really work good. I'm gonna do some 80 grit and then spray paint this. Like my paint booth, Amazon box. We got lots of those around here. Still gonna look like crap. We're gonna go somewhere right like that, which, no, it looks okay. Like I said, I think I'm gonna redo this whole firewall, but let's get this mounted up, see if I can make it look decent. Okay, let's drill a couple. That's loud, sorry. A couple teeny tiny holes. Okay, I really don't want to mount this like permanently, but you'll see why in a second. I'm getting fingerprints all over this thing too, which I don't like. Oh, should have known that was going to happen. As you can tell, I'm a big fan of drilling pilot holes. That's why all my small drill bits are worn out. Oh, hey! This is not exactly how I want to do this, but dang it! Not happy with how it looks, but as they say, it is what it is. This is what I started with. I have no idea where this came from. Probably something I needed for some furniture or something. This used to look like this. See, it was round on the top, and now it's flat on the top. I flattened this off. I used that to cut that and that to grind it off. The circle, I drilled a hole in the middle, but I missed the middle because I didn't use my punch thing. Now I'm going to put the nut zert, that's what it's called. Okay. Alright, so we got that in the nut zert installed. And I do not remember how to use this. So every time is like the first time. How do I do this? I hate when I have to get the instructions out. I think that's how you do it. Okay. And just like that, the nut zert tool is installed. And that's going to be way too big. I should have measured that. I'm really looking for like 3/4 of an inch, not 1 1/8 of an inch. But we're kind of committed to this at this point. My theory, you want to go fast? Nothing there. Full throttle. Like that. I'm going to do an 8-mile bracket race. Screw that in. Problem is, that's too much. I'm not even going to half throttle. So this is the way it used to look. And I cut this and then unscrewed this off. So now this is, I got more. So let's see. And I measured it, and this from here to here is 3/4 of an inch, which is what I think my block was. All right, now you floor it. All right, what I'm looking for is the floor barrel to barely open. Okay. More modification. Now these little fingers, you know, they're getting kind of thin, so I think we're at my limit. All right, the key here is full throttle with pedal and partial floor barrel. We have very partial floor barrel. I think I'm going to stick another screw in here because see how it's bendy? I'm going to be honest, I don't love it, but it does what I want it to do. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Patina Pit Stop. Now the only thing left to do is to take the wagon out to the drag strip, see if this new configuration works. Will the car be more consistent? Will I keep winning rounds? We're going to see that in the next episode of Patina Pit Stop, which is coming up very, very soon. As soon as I get all the editing done, I will have that episode up. Please subscribe to the channel. Check me out on Instagram, also at Patina Pit Stop. And give me a comment, subscribe, you know, all those things. That would really help. And I'm going to try to keep knocking out more content for you guys really, really soon here. Thanks again, guys. See you later. Bye.